A very quiet night over the Italian sky. That night, only one man was awake. Let's not start with the label Galileo Galilei, father of modern science. Let's start with something smaller. An old man on a dark rooftop, holding a rough telescope, looking up at the sky. No applause, no TED stage, no voiceover saying, "This is the moment that changed humanity." There is only one thing. A small question, not yet fully formed as words. What happens if I look a little closer? I like to think every revolution in knowledge begins like that, not with the ambition to change the world, but with a single act of disobedient curiosity. Someone refusing to accept the sky as a printed backdrop. Someone wanting to know what those dots of light actually are. The cost of that moment, Galileo didn't know yet. We, centuries later, know it all too well. From the second he put his eye to the lens, the old world began to crack. The world before it was looked at again. Before Galileo, the world was not dark. It was simply too sure of itself. The earth sat at the center. The moon, the sun, the stars circled around. The heavens were smooth, spherical, perfectly ordered. Humans were a privileged species, placed in a special position in God's layout. It was a universe both cramped and warm. Scientifically wrong, yes. Psychologically very efficient. It gave humans a place, a role, a meaning. You didn't have to worry about how small you were in the total scheme. You just had to live the part you were assigned. Knowledge in that world was not illogical. It just lacked a mechanism for doubting itself. Once something had been stamped by Scripture, Aristotle, or official doctrine, it was treated as settled. The question was no longer, is this true? But how do we explain this in a way that fits what has already been declared true? Galileo grew up in that air. Schools, churches, universities, philosophical debates, all within that frame. He was not born to destroy it. He came into life with something many people have: the desire to understand a little bit more. But unlike most of us, he didn't know how to stop at a little bit. The telescope, a small object that broke a universe. The telescope Galileo used was not his invention, but he was the one who turned it from an optical toy into a weapon of perception. On the night he pointed it at the sky, the story is not simply, he saw what no one had ever seen. The objects were already there. Craters on the moon, its dark side, small moons circling Jupiter. What changed was not the sky. What changed was the story told about it. The moon in the beautiful old books was a flawless disk. Through the lens, it became a scarred rock. What had been called perfect heavenly bodies suddenly revealed cracks, pits, roughness. I don't think Galileo felt pure joy in that first moment. More likely, it was a chill. Not, "I've made a great discovery," but the old story doesn't quite fit anymore. The old truth no longer sat snugly. The new truth wasn't ready yet. In moments like that, humans don't stand between true and false. They stand between what we're used to and what doesn't have a name yet. What Galileo saw through his telescope then was not only the moon, Jupiter, and their satellites, but also the fragility of supposedly unquestionable things. Before truth can become truth, it becomes a threat. From the moment Galileo spoke, the telescope stopped being harmless. It became a loaded question. If anyone can pick up a lens and see for themselves, who still owns reality? Galileo wrote, taught, argued. He didn't say, "You're all idiots." He said, "Let's check again with our own eyes and measurements." Here's the subtle thing. He never denied God. He didn't declare religion a fraud. He did something more disruptive. He suggested reading Scripture metaphorically rather than literally, so it wouldn't collide with what he saw through his telescope. On the surface, it sounds like compromise. In reality, it's a hard shove. If Scripture can be reread, who has the authority to reread it? And if sacred stories must bend to observations, which is weightier? Narrative or reality? At that fork, Galileo was not only touching theology, he was touching the operating system that defined what counted as real.
6. The trial. The moment truth was forced to kneel. The familiar image. An old man with white hair, facing church officials, surrounded by a vast machine of power. Strip away the heroic glow, and what do we see? One person, carrying a few decades of looking and thinking, standing against a structure centuries old. One brain versus an institution. Simple logic colliding with a complex but stable logic. Galileo was ordered to recant his views. He did. People love to take sides here, either condemning him as a coward or praising him as a martyr who sacrificed himself to save his work from being burned. I'm not sure those stories tell us very much. What is clear is this. That moment reveals a hard fact about truth. Truth has no built-in shield. It doesn't raise a force field when attacked. It just exists, or temporarily loses, in the mouth of whoever speaks it. The legendary line, "and yet it moves," may well have never been whispered after the trial. Humanity needs that sentence, not because history demands accuracy, but because we need a softer ending. We prefer to believe that in the end, truth always stands tall. The alternative is harder to swallow. Sometimes truth is simply forced to kneel, and there is nothing it can do. 7. The heaviest punishment. Being cut off from conversation. You might think the cruelest punishment is fire. For someone like Galileo, I'm not convinced. He wasn't executed. He was sentenced to house arrest, forbidden to teach, forbidden to publish, effectively removed from the public conversation. For a mind that lives through dialogue, that is a special kind of prison, enforced cognitive isolation. Imagine this. You've seen something your entire age isn't ready to see. You know the old model doesn't hold. You have the language, data, and experience to explain, and you are forced to keep quiet. You're not silent because you lack words. You're silent because every channel for your words is blocked. Galileo did not die immediately after the trial. He lived for years, writing under constraints as his eyesight weakened. It was not the death of knowledge, but the extension of a life where knowledge is not allowed to spread. No matter how romantically we repaint it, one bare fact remains. Society can punish those who see too early, not only by killing them, but by letting them live, erased from the shared conversation. After Galileo, the world never sleeps as soundly. We like to say Galileo ushered in the age of science. True, if you draw a straight progress line. But there's another angle. From his time onward, humans lose the ability to live entirely inside comforting stories. If Earth is not at the center, we are dust on a minor planet orbiting an average star in an unremarkable corner of a galaxy. If heavenly bodies are not perfect, if the universe is cold, if physical laws don't care about our feelings, then what are we? The scientific answer is clean. We are a physical structure with consciousness, a product of physical, chemical, biological processes. The existential answer is not so clean. We have lost the comforting sense of being placed exactly where we belong by an unseen hand. Before Galileo, people could confidently say, "We are at the center. Everything moves around us. The order is given." After Galileo, that sentence doesn't come as easily. Before Galileo, the Church could define both physical reality and moral reality in one narrative. After Galileo, those begin to split, and no one really knows where they will end up. From my lens, Galileo is not a simple hero of truth. He is a man who chose to live with a very difficult state, knowing that what he sees will damage the mental architecture of his age, and looking anyway. But the real question is not about him. It is about us. If you were living in a time where everyone leaned on the same illusion to sleep at night, and you accidentally discovered that illusion was wrong, what would you do? Would you choose to be Galileo? Or would you choose to be ordinary, close your eyes, live in peace, and let the truth pass by? Saying "I'd be brave like Galileo" is easy in a safe room hundreds of years later. If we strip that sentence of its slogan status and look directly at the cost of seeing too early, I'm not sure many of us could still say it lightly. Maybe that is the most disturbing thing Galileo leaves us. Not the model of the cosmos, not a lesson in physics, but a mirror reflecting the limits of what each of us can really bear about reality. Most of the world chooses sleep. He did not. And perhaps that is why even now, we still don't quite know how to feel about him. Should we thank him for dragging humanity out of a comforting dream without asking? Or blame him, just a little, for switching on a light we can never again turn off?